Enthusiasm is the steam that powers the locomotive, and today we'd see both steam and many other folks that share the same enthusiasm for that strange hobby called rail fanning. Hello again, rail fans. It's Saturday, April 23rd, and on this warm, windy morning, we're heading east on I-4 and then south on the Polk Parkway to US 98. This day, we're going into some uncharted territory for me, with our first destination being the small farming town of Sebring, Florida. You might know that today would be the first trip of the American Association of Private Railcar Owners, or AAPRCO for short, along the U.S. Sugar Company's scenic trackage in Central Florida. Industrial Drive would be the first stop for us, being a dead-end road that ends with the CSX's Auburndale subdivision. Our approaching train would be Amtrak P96823, a train symbol I've never heard of for a train that I've never seen. The whole point of today's festivities would be the transfer of an entire train of privately owned rail cars from the A line to the USSC. Now, these cars came in from Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, and a few other faraway locations. About a week before this event, said rail cars would slowly be transported to Amtrak's terminal station in Washington, D.C., to be made into an 8-car consist to be taken south to Miami. So on Thursday, April 21st, a P93720 took the train of cars south to Miami, with 2 Amtrak P42 DCs leading the parade. Fast forward to present times, and it's about 11:45 a.m., and P96823 is approaching the north end of Ridge Siding, about a mile to our south. This P968 would be the northbound version of P937, but he'd be slowing down to stop at the Sebring Amtrak station just a few yards north of where the USSC's interchange track is located. That Amfleet car behind the locomotives would be to take to Miami, as for some reason the railroad only allows light engines to get up to 50 miles per hour instead of max track speed of 79. So to beat the system, Amtrak made a tiny train of 2 locomotives with 1 car and trail, an authorized train that is permitted for track speed. We'd jump north to the Sebring Amtrak station, which is where everyone chasing this train would also meet up. Here, the 8-car train of private cars would be back through the junction and onto the USSC. Instead of just having the 148 take the train from the station, they had to back it in, and that's because CSX continues to be CSX. They've publicly said that they didn't want any steam-powered locomotive touching their rails, whether that's because of PTC or the lack thereof, or the absence of cab signals. I guess we'll never know. But this would keep things interesting, as 2 crews would be communicating to the copious amount of present railroad personnel. For some reason, P968 had been having troubles all morning with a few of the private cars' air pressure. While that might not sound serious, it very much is, as the air pressure in a car is what's used for the air brakes, whether that be for slowing down the train or an emergency stop. So about 20 minutes at the station would pass, and after various crew members walked the train, the all-clear was given. With the switch line for movement on the USSC, P968 would back its train towards the 148. From here, we'd quickly make our way south a couple of blocks to Kenilworth Boulevard, with the rest of the railfan caravan, as an employee of the U.S. Sugar had said the coupling of 148 would take place here. After a good 20 minutes, the crew of P968 called 148, saying that the train's air pressure was good and the brakes were secured. Just seconds after the all-clear was given, 2 blasts of the whistle confirmed that 148 was beginning his backing move. For those who have seen 148 several times, to a rail fan like me documenting it for the first time, we could all look in amazement at the incredible power of steam from years past. .148 would take its time coupling to P968's train, giving the 60-plus rail fans here a great photo opportunity to photograph the 148 in front of the Sebring water tower. This 234,000-pound beast was built in 1920 by American Locomotive Company for the FEC Railway, included in their order of 5 or 6 of the type. The 462 wheel arrangement classifies it as a Pacific type. At the time of mainline operations, 148 was coal-fired, working on several railroads around the U.S. for passenger and freight excursions. It was finally sold to the USSC in 2016. This photo from a railroad worker can really show what a fossil this engine had become. The main body was completely rusted over, with valves, pipes, and a myriad of other parts missing. The restoration project began in late 2016, unknown to the public, until finally gaining popularity up to its grand reveal in the summer of 2020. Today would be its first time pulling an AAPRCO's train, but it looked right at home. Back on the road, we're skipping south to DeSoto Road before 148's departure. This would be a nice spot with a straight main running next to well-kept landscape and a staple of Florida, the palm trees. Rail fans would start to show up next to me one by one, soon creating a crowd of camera and tripods, all excited for the powerful steam engine to pass. We were all set up and waiting when around the corner came the headlight of 148. I'll let the sheer power and sounds of the locomotive do the talking now. Unfortunately, US 27 would be under construction in the portion we were going to leapfrog the train to, but it ended up working out as the second DeSoto Road crossing would be our next shot. Another crowd of rail fans would be here as well, documenting 148 passing what I believe to be the approach signal for the junction of the A line downtown. With 148 gaining speed, we'd head south a bit further where the railroad crosses over the highway. A nice hill leading up to the tracks would make for a great setup point, as well as being on the sunlit side. Here, the tracks make a westward swing to gain access to downtown Lake Placid. This would be our final moving shot of 148, and the soft white clouds and clear blue sky would make it a good one. A quick whistle salute and 148 would be entering Lake Placid. By the time we stopped here at the station, 148 was already stopped and getting checked. 2 men would be oiling the piston rods and wheel mechanisms while the crew of 148 checked the car brakes and attached a massive hose from 148's water tank to the fire hydrant down the road. Steam comes from boiling water into water vapor, so water is constantly in the boiler to create steam, almost like a power plant. Unlike some power plants, however, the 148 runs off of recycled vegetable oil, making its emissions much better and efficient for the environment than being coal-fired. The burning of the oil creates heat, which boils the water, creating steam that travels to the pistons. From there, the steam pushes in and out of the piston, creating locomotion, finally billowing out of the funnel and several other steam pipes. Hundreds of people would be at the Lake Placid station to greet 148 today. Kids to adults to the elderly would be taking pictures and videos of the running relic. From here, the passengers on board would get off the train to eat lunch, making the Lake Placid station stop about 2 hours long. It was already 3 p.m. and we still had a 2.5-hour drive back home. So here's where we'd end our day. A successful day of catching P968 and the 148, documenting my first AAPRCO event and the first time Amtrak locomotives have ever touched U.S. Sugar's rails. So until we meet again, out here chasing the Sugarland Limited or back on my hometown rails along the CSX, this is Christian from Multicolor Films. End of transmission.